In week number 2, I gave students a 34-page photocopied chapter called the Basic 5-Paragraph Essay. This chapter is really a review of what most students learned in the lower level 031 class. There's not a lot of new material, but it's a useful review, and of course some students didn't take 031, so this will help them a lot. Because it's explaining the main parts of an essay, which are up here. We have an introduction, we have some body paragraphs, and finally we have a conclusion. It's explaining a style of writing that is very academic, and professors are expecting students to know this style of writing. Professors prefer to use it in most of their classes. So here is an example with only 3 paragraphs in number 3 and a few questions, and then going down to our main essay. It starts on page number 5, Becoming an Academic Writer. Now here we have a longer introduction, we have 3 body paragraphs, and then finally a conclusion. And one of the best parts of this essay is analyzing the introduction and how it connects to or relates to the body paragraphs. So in today's lesson in week 3, I discussed the organization of this introduction. The way it starts and the way it ends are very, very important. A lot of students, when they're taking an essay test, they just start giving a lot of main ideas right away in the first paragraph. But in this kind of essay, we are trying to avoid that. We're trying to make an introduction which really pays attention to the reader and the interests and concerns of the reader. I call this a reader-friendly introduction. It's thinking about the fact that some readers don't even want to read your essay. So your introduction is trying to get them interested in the essay. And we'll talk about the way you do that in the beginning of the introduction, and then what you put at the end of the introduction to prepare them for what's coming in the body. And in today's lesson, we discussed the differences between the topic sentences and the introduction. I'm going to look at a few examples of this, some visual examples that might help you understand this a little bit better, how the topic sentences and the thesis statements can guide the reader to understand how the essay is organized and structured. This kind of writing is a very structured form of writing. In this paragraph here, in this picture here, we see a introduction that starts out very big and then focuses down onto a small point, and that's where the thesis goes. That small point is closely connected to each body paragraph. So they have lines here going down to the first topic sentence, the second topic sentence, the third, for each of the body paragraphs. That's one way to visually show it. Let's look at another way, another picture style. Perfect, this is only about paragraphs, so it's just saying that a good paragraph often starts with a good topic sentence. It has support after the topic sentence, and then it ends with a concluding sentence. What about a good essay? Usually the beginning of the introduction is a general statement or a hook. Then there is some background information, and then there's a thesis. Let's try another one here and look at a picture representation. An introduction moves from general to specific. This is where you start to orient your reader to what your position is on the topic. And at the end of the introduction, they call it a summary, but I call it a thesis. They use the word road map. In other words, this points the reader in the right direction, but it does not tell exactly all the main ideas. A summary should give all the main ideas, but the roadmap is kind of the outline about where the direction of the essay is going in a general way. And then the body and the conclusion we'll discuss in later, but usually it has to repeat or restate the main idea, maybe a little bit of summarizing, but not too much heavy repeating. If you start to use a lot of the same language, exactly the same, that's not very helpful or effective. Because if I want to remind myself about the body, I'll just go back and read the topic sentences in the body paragraphs. So down here we usually comment on the information. Why is this essay important or significant is the focus here. So these pictures might help you a little bit to understand the way we organize essays. Here is another one. This page will load here. Nope. That was the one we saw before. So let's go back now into the chapter that I've given you. You can also download the chapter in the Writing Lessons page. Back into the chapter, I want you to study and analyze the pages 5 and 6, because this is the model that I want you to follow this week. But we're going to change the title. Instead of becoming an academic writer, we're going to change it to becoming an effective student. An effective student is one who learns a lot, is successful in their learning activities, becoming a successful student. So some of the points will be similar, but most will be different, and we'll talk about that in a minute here in the lesson. Okay, for homework, well, not for homework, today in week number 3, I started discussing the organization of the introduction. Very important. How is the introduction organized? And today we talked about sentence number 1. Many people think that the introduction should start out with the main idea, the general information, but that is what a topic sentence does. An introduction does not have a topic sentence. So today we explained the difference. A topic sentence is only covering one paragraph, but a thesis statement is covering the whole essay, all 5 or 6 or 7 paragraphs. So the organization of the introduction is very special, very different, and it starts out with the hook. The hook is designed to make the reader attracted to or interested in or excited about what you have to say. So in the school world, people read because they have to read, but in the real world of magazines and newspapers, people read because you attract them, you pull them, draw them into the information, into listening to you explain something or describe something. The hook is supposed to do that, and the way the hook does it is usually not, very important, not by giving a main idea. In fact, some hooks are not even very well connected to the main points of the essay. Hooks are saying something clever or cute or somehow interesting. Often hooks are very emotional. Your essay is probably going not to be very emotional, but a hook will be something that will make me feel attracted to your topic in an emotional way. So today we developed a body paragraph about the storm in Buffalo. And I asked students to develop different hooks for an essay about the storm in Buffalo. Last 2 weeks, windstorm and cold weather. And I asked students, what could you say that would make students want to read about the storm in Buffalo? If you just give a number, if you just say, well, the temperature was -3, does that really make me interested? Not very much. But if you say that the weather was so cold and so windy that you were afraid of being killed, of dying, when you were outside in the cold weather, now I'm interested for you to explain this story because you made me connect to the feeling that you had. So a hook is 1 or 2 sentences to really draw the reader, pull the reader in. This is kind of the artistic part of essay writing. You really have to think about your reader when you make the hook. You're not focusing on your ideas, you're thinking about who is going to read this and how I'm going to attract them. So that's the beginning of the introduction. The end of the introduction is the thesis, but in the middle we have some background information. Background information is supposed to prepare me for the thesis statement. Let's say we're talking about Buffalo storms. Well, maybe I don't know all about Buffalo. So you could give me some background information about the storms in Buffalo, the weather, the climate, something like that. So now when you come up to the thesis, I will be ready to understand the general thesis. A good thesis is trying to give an overview of the whole essay. The example here says, my wedding day, which is the topic, just a noun phrase. My wedding day was the most thrilling day of my life. That's the controlling idea over here. So I know this essay is not going to explain everything about the wedding day. It's not going to explain everything about my life. This essay is going to focus on this one word here, thrilling. Thrilling, very exciting. So the essay now is going to try to go through and talk about all the exciting activities and events that happened on my wedding day. The focus is on thrilling. If you're writing about the man I admire, the woman I admire, well, admire is a strong word. You have to explain all the positive things about that person in the essay. So in this essay here, maybe I'll start out talking about the food, or maybe I'll have a paragraph about the music and the dancing. Maybe there'll be something about the guests who visited. That will be another paragraph. All of them will be thrilling and exciting. So for homework today, I assigned students to page number 9, analyzing this small introduction here. We talked about this little hook here. It's not a very exciting hook, but it got me a little bit interested in what story they had to say. And then I asked students to do, on Monday, I asked students to do for homework page 10, go back to pages 5 and 6, becoming an academic writer, and then answer these questions. What's the topic sentence? Write it here. What supporting details directly connect to that topic sentence, and how do they support it and explain it and develop it. And then there's two choices for the concluding sentence. Maybe it is bringing the idea to a close, so it's kind of finishing the final thought about that paragraph, or maybe it is suggesting what will come next, indicating, showing, suggesting what will come next in the next paragraph. That's another style of writing. This week we also have to talk about the conclusion, and the conclusion is trying to finish the essay. As I said earlier, they recommended here 2 to 4 sentences in length. A good conclusion doesn't have to be very long, but typically a good conclusion will restate. Now, what's the difference between repeat and restate? Well, repeat is using exactly the same words, which is very boring, because if I want to see the same words, I'll just go back and read it myself. But restate is kind of what we also call paraphrase, changing the words to kind of bring out the meaning in a slightly different way. It's the same meaning, same idea, but I'm using different words to help the reader see it slightly differently. And a good conclusion also does usually one of these things. Gives advice, makes a prediction, maybe some new insights. Often a good conclusion is commenting again about why this is important information, why this is useful or helpful for you. So we're on here, page 11. There's more of an analysis about conclusions. Today we started talking about unity. Unity means that every part of the paragraph is on the same topic. So a good paragraph is all about one topic. It's all unified, and in this exercise they have canceled and taken out some points which really don't exactly belong here. It seems like it belongs, but really it doesn't, because when you look at the main point of this paragraph, in this example here, it's about my favorite character. So if I'm trying to explain more about the novel, well, I'm getting a little bit off the topic now. The focus should be about the character. The character is the person in the story. His name was Jay Gatsby. So we're going to be practicing on unity this week. We have to find sentences here that don't really belong in this essay. So I've finished up to page 13 now, and we will continue talking about this in the future. We cannot finish this whole chapter this week. We'll finish it next week, so keep reading, keep studying ahead. There's some very nice grammar coming up here that will help you a lot in your writing, especially discussing clauses of different kinds. And I forgot to mention that at the very end, there's a very nice section here at the very end about how do you know what should be in one paragraph. We discussed it today in some classes, and the main point we said was right here, keep one idea to one paragraph. If you have to start a new idea, then you probably should start a new paragraph. And then finally we did a little discussion about what is a good topic sentence. So now here I'm on page 33, and a topic sentence is giving the general point of one paragraph, and it is something that is showing the writer's position or attitude. It's not a detail. Sometimes it uses kind of general language, but it is specific enough to be just for that paragraph. So today we talked about Buffalo's weather problems. And I said, well, that sounds like a thesis, because that sounds like you need a whole essay to discuss Buffalo's weather problems. But if you want to talk just about the cold temperature, well, that could be a topic sentence to introduce one paragraph focusing only on cold temperatures. So that's the connection between these two. And here's a nice explanation about the weak topic sentence and then the strong topic sentence. This is the last page, page 34. So keep reading ahead. I'll come back and add to this lesson today as we go along.